Welcome back to the Something in the Wilderness podcast. This is part 2 in a 2-part episode for the Holiday from Real Cruise recap. I have 2 guests with me today, Madelyn and Mike, and if you haven't listened to part 1, I'd highly encourage you to do that and then come back and listen to part 2. Anything else about sets in general? Like songs, sets, anything like that. I got to give a shout out to Jukebox the Ghost. I really appreciate them coming on the show before the boat. It was so awesome to talk to them. And I caught 2 of their full sets. One, I was up above, as we had talked about, nice view from the rail for the late night set. They played Wasted. I Got My Wish. We did catch them in the atrium, which was just amazing. Again, favorite venue. I was right down front. It felt like we were in a living room with the Jukebox guys playing songs for us. But those were some of my favorite sets.
I was really bummed I didn't catch any of Ivory Lane's sets.
I missed her too.
I don't know her music very well, but she, I think, has like a Zach-esque quality to her that is
Mhm.
just very captivating when you're watching her. And so it was so fun that she was added as the stowaway set. There really wasn't a weak link on the boat. I'm not the type of person to just, say that about a lineup, but they're really like they knocked it out of the park with this audience and these acts. And yeah, they're everything we went to we enjoyed, even if we didn't know. Like, I don't know much of the Academy is, but holy smokes, what a show. And it was phenomenal.
Yeah, we're
Wow.
bummed we missed Ivory Lane too, because we saw her when she was opening and performing with Andrew for, I think it was the like Winter in the Wilderness might have been the tour, because they went
hmm
to really small venues, at least where we were, and we saw him with her. And I just, every time I hear one of the songs that he, wrote with her, performed with her, I'm just like I think about her because it was like you said, Mike, like she has such just like this like aura where it just there's something about her where I'm like, oh, you're different in like the best ways. Like I need to like she's just I don't know, captivating, I guess. Like maybe you said that, but yeah, I'm really sad that we didn't get to catch any of her sets because the first Stowaway set was at the same time on stand. I'm like, I'm not missing the first set, and then I forget what came up between the second one, but we missed both, which was unfortunate.
Yeah.
Too much to do.
Yeah, there were conflicts with both. I knew that as soon as they announced the day before, like, here are the 2 stowaway sets placed right here and right there, wherever that fell. I was like, oh, there's no way. It doesn't matter who the stowaway is because I need to see this, whatever artist it was the conflict. I don't remember which, but I didn't catch any of her sets, unfortunately. I'm not that familiar with her work, though. I did appreciate, I was down front when she came out for Dead Man's Dollar during the Wilderness set, and that was awesome. I love that song. I knew she had co-wrote it, and I loved that she was able to come on stage and I don't know if that had happened before. Maybe it has. And then during Something Corporate, she also came out for Death Grip, one of their newer songs that she helped write as well. So it's got to be pretty neat for her, but also pretty neat for Andrew. Like, again, when you're out on tour, you don't have Ivory Lane just stopping by to be like, hey, and this is the person that wrote the song with me to come out on stage. But here she is, and she's on the boat with us. So why not? Let's do this.
I might be making assumptions too, but I feel like, and not to say Andrew doesn't seem to enjoy playing with everybody who is on, the boat, but he seems to really enjoy singing, performing all of it with Ivory Lane too. Like I've now seen him perform multiple of his songs with her, and every time it's like they just look like they're having the time of their lives. And not that Andrew didn't look at any point like he wasn't having the time of his life,
Right.
but he seems to just really enjoy being on stage with Ivory Lane of, in addition to other people, but she's definitely seems like she's up there.
I asked on Instagram for people to give us some questions that, from a perspective, so people who were not on the ship to ask some questions. And we've covered some of this already, but I'm gonna rattle through a few of them right now, starting with the first one. What was it like to be surrounded by Andrew fans for 4 days, as opposed to like you go out to concerts and you kind of get that a little bit, and certain places in life. But what was it like for on a boat to be with just Andrew fans for 4 days, basically?
I was nervous going into it. Not that I always, keep my cool or anything of that sort, but our fandom can be a little intense sometimes, I feel.
To put it
And
lightly.
to put it lightly, to be in a small confined space, I was really interested in how it was going to play out. And by and large, I think you were saying this earlier, Steve, everybody just, it was kind of like this unspoken code of, hey, you're enjoying time with your family while you're eating a meal together, or, the artist is enjoying listening to someone else's set. Like, you let them be. And I think I was. in addition to like what Madeline was saying about feeling safe and just around like-minded people, it was kind of cool just to be chill in everybody's presence.
Yeah, I had the same experience. I really did not know what to expect going in. I'm like, these are either going to be like the loony, overly obsessed, like super fans, or it's going to be like boyfriends or whoever that got dragged along and they don't know anybody, and it's going to be like this whole weird mix of people. And not to say there wasn't both of those things, but
Sure,
the
there
fact
was.
that like yeah, exactly. The fact that like everybody though, like you said, Mike, like there was unspoken kind of sense of decorum and how to kind of like interact with each other, and everyone seemed to be getting along, whatever their personalities were. And I think the fact that in some way, shape, or form, the fact that Andrew McMahon's kind of thread of music ran through all of us, I think that kind of really gave this, conscious or unconscious sense of community, no matter how deep into the lore we are.
I had a little bit of experience with this topic on the rock boat, like I mentioned earlier. On these 6 man cruises, they always ask you when you book which artist you're most excited to see. And so Andrew McMahon just being one of 27 artists that was on the 2021 rock boat, people like my wife and I had designated that's the artist we're here to see. Even if we liked others, you always had to put the one. And so we knew from that stat that there was 400 of us on that boat. And that was really neat back in 2021. That was my first experience with that sort of thing. Like, oh my gosh, there's so many Andrew fans. When you go to the set, you're seeing the same 400 people going to each of his sets, of course. And so that was something I was actually really looking forward to. I was like, I can't wait to be surrounded by Andrew fans again because there are that we are intense. There's also like the casual fans. I was surprised that there was as many what I'd call casual fans. I don't see any tiers in the fandom. Like if you like an Andrew song, you're an Andrew fan. It doesn't matter when you came in. It doesn't matter how much you like. So I don't see it like that. And there's newer fans and there's fans like, the two of you have been in it for a long time. But in the end, like you said, there's this thread, Madeline. But we're all just fans. And his music and his Andrew's voice and his persona, it brings in a certain crowd. Ultimately, no matter where you fall in that mix, there's still a common thread through of who Andrew fans kind of are for the most part. And that's what I was looking forward to. And I feel like I got that because on other 6 man cruises I've gone on, I've enjoyed, but there's subgroups of people that are all there for different artists. Whereas I knew walking on that boat, almost everyone is here for Andrew, in addition to some other artists probably as well. I heard there was like a Mr. Wives contingent of people who came on just for
Mhm.
Mr. Wives. I was shocked by that. I did not know they had like that cult following, but I've learned on these cruises though, there's basically like a little cult following. Sometimes they're smaller, sometimes they're larger for every single artist you know. Like I didn't know that before a few years ago.
Yeah, it's like Mike, I think you alluded to this earlier, like Augustana fans, like we are small but we are mighty. We show up. Like I kept seeing the same couple people at all of like their
Mm-hmm.
sets, and I was like, she knows what's up. He knows what's up. I'm like one of the like crazy fans for the one tiny band on the boat.
We may have already addressed this, but like, how about a top moment? What were some like really standout moments on this ship for you?
But I have one that's a little corny, I guess, in the sense of Steve, I don't know if you've experienced this before, but I would classify Andrew's fan base as largely female
Mm-hmm.
or,
Yeah.
feminine. And it was so affirming in some ways being on the cruise with so many men who appeared to be just as passionate as well. And I haven't necessarily had that experience at many Andrew shows before, which doesn't necessarily make me self-conscious, but something that is noticeable. And so that was cool in some ways to see a little bit of a different balance there.
I guess my unique or special moment was more of a collection of moments. When we were getting on the boat and they made the announcement, not the announcement, they released the information about like tattoo artists being on board. I was like, I do love a tattoo. I have many. And I was like, I want to get a tattoo. I'm like, that sounds like a great way to commemorate what is probably going to be, and it obviously ended up being like a very big part of my human experience at this point, honestly. So I was thinking about what I was going to get for the tattoo. I didn't really know what the setup was. I didn't know what kind of how much or how little I could get or whatever. I didn't want to get anything crazy because like we're on a boat in the ocean, cannot get tattoos wet. So I was thinking, life as life does happens, and it was in the back of my mind, nothing about it for months and months and months. And finally, me and Peter on board, we're doing, I think we're having like lunch, something like that, maybe dinner. And I was thinking, just brainstorming some tattoo ideas. I'm like, oh, maybe I'll get like a little moon and and a star and have like a quote from Andrew and da 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 da. And I threw out this idea at one point. I was like, well, it would actually be really cool if I did some kind of like mashup between Andrew McMahon and Augustana slash Dan Lewis. I'm like, they are two of probably the biggest musical influences on my life, actually easily two of the biggest influences almost in general on my life. And I was like, I want to do like an homage to both. So I was like, how about I do like the asterisk for like a star, and then I can get like and boulevards because that's one of the Augustana songs early on, and I think the album is called Stars and Boulevards. I was like, oh, that'd be a cool little like mashup. So I just found that out. We were talking about it. We're like, oh, it'd be really cool if we could like get it in like Dan's handwriting or something like that. So we kind of were talking about it. We're like, oh, we got to go catch whatever show. We go off to catch the show. And en route to, I think it was the one at the front of the boat with the swaying, but we were on our way there and we go through Cafe, a little gift shop, and Pete looks, he goes, there's Dan. Dan was like in one of the gift shops with what I later found out to be his family off doing whatever. And Pete's like, you got to go talk to him. I was like, I can't. I'm like, I don't want to be weird. I'm like, I don't want to be one of those fans who are like annoying people and all this stuff over and over. I'm like, it's only the first night or whatever it was. So Pete's like, no, we're doing it because he knew how much this would have meant to me. So he went up and like introduced himself to Dan, like said he's like, yeah, we're big fans, da da da. And he like made me come over. I'm like, hi. And we like had a great conversation. He was so gracious. Like he was so kind and like he was just clearly so happy to be there and at this place in his life with his family. Like, and I was like, I have a request. And I was trying to like explain the backstory of the tattoo I was going to get. And I was like, can you just like write and boulevards? He's like, that's it. I'm like, yeah. So I have it. So I realized we're on a podcast, so no one but us are going to see it. But like he actually ended up signing and
Yeah, I saw.
boulevards. So I was like, great. Now I got to get a tattoo. The next, I don't know, night or something, I go down to the tattoo people. I'm like, so what's the setup here? And they're like, okay, well, you got to get on the list. And I guess people are getting a range of types of tattoos, all this stuff. I'm like, I just want to get like this little thing. And they're like, oh, well, one of our artists just had someone like cancel if you want to come back in half an hour, otherwise we're booked for the next 2 days. I was like, meant to be, I guess. So I go, she does the tattoo. So I have the tattoo. I got stars
Oh, the
and
asterisk.
boulevards. Yeah, so I got the asterisk and then I got and boulevards and like Dan's handwriting from what he signed. And Pete, again, knowing that I am a extrovert except when it comes to like talking to famous people, he was like, "We got to show Dan." I was like, "Yeah, if we see him." Lo and behold, after the last Augustana set, again in that like front little like moving room, me and Pete walk outside afterwards, like to the edge of the boat just to get some fresh air, or whatever. And I'm like, "Yeah, that was a great set." And then he goes, "Oh, isn't that Dan's wife and kids?" And they were like over by the side of the boat looking at the water. I was like, uh-oh. I'm like, am I gonna be weird about this? I was like, I'm gonna be weird about it. I'm like, I can't loiter here. I can't loiter here and look like a weirdo. So we start walking in the other direction of Dan's family. I'm so scared of the edges of the boat for whatever reason. I hated being out exposed to them and stuff. I was like, I'm too close to the water and it's so far down and it's so expansive. And I was like, I can't be close to it. So every time I was on that part of the boat, I was like up against the wall. Not wanting I was like against the wall like a kid at a ice skating rink trying to just like not fall. So I would like hold the banister anyway. So we're walking in the opposite direction of Dan's family to not make it weird. I'm like clutching the wall this whole time. And lo and behold, where we were walking is where bands leave that venue. So I am in this little tiny, probably 2 foot wide gap between the boat and the water, clutching the railing. And here comes Dan and his bassist. And I'm just sitting there like, not like this. So I frantically start like backpedaling. Dan's getting closer. I'm like, please don't see me, please don't see me. And I finally get into the expanse of like the side of the boat and I like try to make some joke because now I'm flustered and stressed and anxious. And Pete, again, being the voice of reason, he was like, he kind of started like a little conversation. And I'm like, I got the tattoo. And Dan again, was, of course, very gracious, very kind. He appreciated, like, oh my God, it's such an honor. Like, it looks great, da da da. And they left, and I was like, man, I look like an idiot. In my head, I'm like, I look like a crazy stalker fan right now. And the best slash worst part after that was that we saw Dan and his family, not intentionally, probably 3 or 4 more times the rest of that trip. We kept seeing them at, again, that little outdoor dining area on the back of the
Hmm.
boat. And I was like, I cannot keep doing this. I'm like, but all that to say, I don't think it did. I don't think he thinks I'm that weird. He probably doesn't remember the interaction, hopefully. But I got the cool tattoo, and now I have this, story that might wake me up in the middle of the night with like just feeling cringy every now and then. But yeah, all in all, 10 out of 10 would do it again. Just hopefully not like stressed out and clutching the side of a boat.
I love that place to eat on the back deck there. We saw a guy 2 of the mornings eating with his wife or girlfriend. I believe it was a member of Augustana because it wasn't until the last day when I saw them on stage. I was like, oh, I knew that guy was in a band. You can kind of tell sometimes. I'm like, I knew he was in one of the bands. I just didn't know which. There he is. He's
Yeah.
on stage with them. He might have been the bassist. I'm not sure.
We had a lot of those cases where we'd see people were like, looks like the quote unquote talent, I guess, as they were calling them. And but I didn't have my phone at all because I did not get the Wi-Fi package because I was like, I don't want to talk to anybody. I'm like, I want to
Hmm.
disconnect. If there's an emergency number that they can call and they'll
Yeah.
connect to our room. I don't know if you saw me lurking around the boat. I had one of those like disposable cameras the whole time. I had like 3 or 4 of them, and
Oh,
I was like, I
nice.
don't want to see my phone. I don't want to touch my phone. I want no contact with the outside world. I didn't know till I got off the boat that I had seen someone from one of the bands that I might have been less familiar with, which was good and bad.
That's interesting. That's a different way to do the boat than I do, and I'm a little bit jealous for that reason, just to be able to
Hmm.
disconnect because that's hard for me.
My sister-in-law had gotten the Wi-Fi package just so we could get photos and videos back and forth with at Camp Grandma. But in the Facebook group leading up to the cruise, everyone was saying, don't worry about it. You'll get iMessage, you'll be fine. And I would say that worked like maybe a third of the time. It had to
Hmm.
be you had to be in a part of a ship that wasn't really busy or crowded, and maybe then you would get a message and an influx. And so we ended up getting the Wi-Fi package for like 24 hours just because we kept losing each other.
Yeah.
But outside of that, it was really nice to just get messages and not know about the news going on in the world or anything of the sort.
Yeah, I didn't look at any news outlets. The only thing I did was I posted my videos each night to Instagram. I used Facebook Messenger to communicate with the people that I already knew on the boat. Yeah, so I really only used my phone for limited types of things, and I'm glad I stayed away from all the outside world stuff. I tried to anyway, just to kind of again holiday from real, right? So what we're here for.
Hmm.
Another fan question that somebody asked was, did Andrew just randomly show up places? And we've already answered yes. Do you guys have any examples that we haven't addressed yet of like just places Andrew would pop into?
Oh, I guess we haven't talked too much about Hunter DeBlanc yet.
We haven't. And we should. That's a great place.
I think those were a really unexpected highlight of the cruise for us as well. Was so Hunter's shows were in the Magnum's bar area, I think it was called, and
Yeah.
it was if you weren't there right when it started, you were upstairs in earshot. It was so packed because everybody was enjoying it so much. And I think it was the first night you and I ended up staying close to each other. I think that
Yeah.
night, Steve. And
Yeah.
all of a sudden we're standing there and we're like, oh, is that Andrew singing? Did Andrew suddenly come
Yeah.
and play
Hunt,
a few songs?
Hunter's playing Drunk Girl. That's cool. Wait, that sounds like Andrew's voice.
And there were so many instances of that with karaoke, with Flip Cup, with the informal belly flop contest.
Yeah, Hunter DeBlanc, he showed up too. He was on my Flip Cup team for a round. So we had signed up for Flip Cup as a team in advance, and there actually 2 of our members don't drink beer, which was fun, just ironic and funny. And they were like, "What are we gonna do? How are we gonna handle that?" Laura, who was on our team, she's like, I don't know. Somehow she was talking to Andrew's manager, and he was looking for a team to join, just as kind of like the fun of it. And she was like, "Well, he can join. He can join in my place." And I didn't know that was happening until we were staying at the table about to start, and I'm like, looking down the table. I'm like, oh, Andrew's on our team. Cool. Like, and so we did win that round. Andrew may have been the weak link on the team. That's okay, but we did win. Good job, Andrew, getting that flip. It was just so much fun. And then we all were jumping up and down. And one of our friends was taking pictures, which I had no idea because I was just so enamored by the fact that I'm playing Flip Cup on a cruise ship with Andrew and Mann on my team. How cool. She took like a whole series of pictures. And so we have a bunch of pictures of us celebrating and hugging and slapping hands and like jumping up and down. It's a really cool, unique thing. So I would say that was one of the most unique things to happen to me on the cruise is just like, oh hey, we're just gonna play Flip Cup right now. Yeah, he was popping in everywhere. He was on other artists' sets like Hunter DeBlanc. He jumped in with Jukebox the Ghost playing Wasted. We already talked about that. Karaoke. Did either of you go to the karaoke night?
No, and it's possibly my biggest regret that I didn't do
Really?
on the cruise. I am such a karaoke junkie. Like I love karaoke probably more than any other out in the world event. Like I will go to a karaoke bar at the drop of a hat if someone asked me.
Yeah.
And I was like all ready to go. I knew what song I was gonna do, and we just never made it there. And I told Pete, I was like, Pete, we have to go in 2026 because I need to do my karaoke.
What can you tell us your go-to song? Or do you
Okay.
not want to
Well,
reveal? You don't
no, no,
have to
no.
reveal.
I'll give you the two or three that I was considering, but I won't tell you which one I settled on. It was either going to be Proud Mary by Tina Turner,
Uh-huh.
Somebody to Love by Queen, or Son of a Preacher Man.
All right.
Solid choices all around.
Thank you. Thank you. Maybe we'll find
You
out in 2026.
well, you've got to have some talent there to sing those songs because those are yeah. I'm pretty like even keel. Like Gin Blossom's better than Ezra. Like '90s radio rock is where I sit just because they're easy to sing. So like I would say for me it's Hey Jealousy by Gin Blossoms is my go-to. And Rustin Kelly played that in his set by the way, and so we just went nuts and like everybody was singing along. That was fun. Fun side note. But anyway, Mike, did you make it to karaoke?
No, I went to bed.
Okay.
I could
Also
not
smart
hang.
choice. Yeah.
The last night was prom night, I believe. We had
Hmm.
a few friends that were hanging around and had signed up for karaoke, and we're like, we're gonna do it. We're staying up all night. And I think like 5 minutes into waiting for them, I was like, okay, I'm calling it. Tired, I'm sleepy.
Yeah.
But living vicariously through the videos of it seems like Bobby and Andrew had a lot of fun doing karaoke each night.
I showed up about a half hour, maybe 45 minutes before it ended. The first of the two nights they did it, and I knew someone had said there's going to be a special guest. You know, people are, and we're like, okay, who do you think that is? But ironically, Mandy Lee was there for most of the set, so I'm like, oh, Mandy from Mr. Wives is going to sing. I don't think she ever did that I saw while I was there. So I kept thinking, oh, it's going to be Mandy, which is cool too. I never saw her get on stage, but like 7 minutes left of the time of karaoke, Bobby and Andrew come walking in, and I'm like, okay, they're doing a song. And so first it was Bobby. He walked up. I thought it was just gonna be Bobby, and then Andrew walks up after him, and I'm like, okay, they're gonna one of them or both of them are gonna do a song. And do you know what they picked?
So
I want to know what love is, the '80s ballad.
incredible,
Out of
incredible.
left field. Like that's not the one I would have predicted, but it was funny. It was just fun. You know, it was not to show off any kind of like. It was just like two bros having fun on stage together. That's all it was.
Karaoke is not supposed to be impressive.
Yeah, it's
That's
not
right.
necessarily going to be.
I
It's
know.
just
I
Exactly.
need you to tone it down a little bit.
Yeah.
but as long as the person on stage having fun, I would be having fun. It doesn't matter what they sound like to me.
I'm so impressed by Bobby's range in
Hmm.
terms of, the solo set he did of, it's soft and
Hmm.
introspective, and then jumping into Bike Lock and then jumping into 80s power ballads. He has a lot more flexibility than I sometimes remember.
It sounds like Mandy might have been a staple too at karaoke. I've heard a few people allude to her being there, and I think she even said on stage a few times, she's like, I'll see you at karaoke. So I feel like that might have been like a hangout for her, which
Yeah,
good for her.
she was there most of the time. I think she was
Hmm.
there the entire time I was, and I think I was there maybe half the karaoke. She's hanging out, and several of her bandmates were there as well.
Hmm.
And there were other people from other bands there too, just kind of again, you're just at a bar. It just happens to be there's people that are in bands at the same bars you are, hanging out at the same time. We talked about this already. I'll skip this one. We did talk about what the cross pollination of Andrew's bands was, like Clutch playing with the Wilderness, or William Tell playing with the Wilderness, and Josh playing with Jax.
Great use of that word, by the way.
Cross pollination. That was a fan question.
That was an amazing choice of words. Like I have put that in my vocabulary bank and I'm willing to, use it as needed now.
Shout out to whomever submitted that question. So,
Yes, thank you.
and then somebody asked, and we've talked about this but haven't directly stated it. Was there live music during the day, or were all shows during the evenings?
The first full day on the cruise, we didn't get to go out to the K
Yeah,
because the water was a little too choppy, and I feel like that's when a few shows started a little bit earlier. Like, I think that's when Zach and Friends set was added into the mix.
yeah.
So I think that day in particular, everything seemed to have started a little bit earlier. The day when we were in the Bahamas, I think everything started like 4:30, 5 o'clock, so it was a little bit later if I'm
Right.
remembering.
As bummed as I was to like not get a day to just lay on the beach and like hang out and drink Mai Tais, I really enjoyed, actually now prefer that we had a whole extra day of basically a full day of shows because like there were a lot of people I don't know that I would have caught if
Hmm.
I didn't have those extra few hours of sets to go to because it's just everything was so packed on top of each other and so many conflicts that having all those extra time to see people really helped me see more people, which was great.
And I noticed if you're going in 2026, they have two at sea days specified and only one stop next time.
Okay.
This one was out of the 3 full days we're out there. Two were planned stops. One we didn't get to do, as Mike pointed out, and then the other we did get to do. And then there was a planned sea day. Whereas next time there's two planned sea days. So I feel like we'll get more daytime shows. But yeah, from a 6-man organization standpoint, and I think this is a Norwegian probably rule or whatever. They do not have sets during the port times because they want you to get off the boat. They want you to go spend money, right? Like that's part of their deal. They either do not or are not allowed to have artists playing on the boat while you're at port, but they always have a sail away show. So like as you're pulling away, they make a big deal on each of the port stops that there's a set at that time to kind of kick things off for the night. But then for the sea days, yeah, they start at noon. I loved that Augustana playing at noon on that last day. I kept saying to my friends, Andre and Nathan, I was sitting with, I was like, can we just have more matinees? This is what I want. I want to go sit in a nice theater at noon on a Sunday and listen to the artists that I love sometimes at noon. Dan Leas made a joke. He was like, welcome to the brunch set. Like, hope you brought your breakfast with you or something. Like, I like that for a change. I don't always want it that way, but I've suggested that on Camp Wilderness. Maybe you guys should consider doing like a tour or a couple stops that have like daytime sets.
And I think having more shows throughout the day, at least in our case, would have given us more of an opportunity to do some of the late night events because we did miss
Hmm.
a fair amount of those just because,
Yeah.
after a full day of either being at port or going to other shows and trying to just simply the mental energy to run around, by the time it got to be like, 10, 11 or later, it was like I could go to shut up and dance or I could sleep for 5 hours tonight. So
Hmm.
I think having more time to do more, like all the things would have been helpful. And I mean, yeah, like we've already said, daytime shows are quite nice these
Yeah.
days.
The one point of feedback I had provided in my 6 man survey, so if anybody from 6 man's listening, I'm outing myself, I guess. I was so surprised that all the restaurants were closed after the headlining set, and that
Yes.
each night the Garden Cafe, which was the buffet that was open for everyone, there was some sort of disconnect of like realizing we're going to have a mad dash after everybody's done with this concert, but yet we're already in the process of switching over from dinner to late night snacks. And it felt very hard with just how packed the pool deck would be that if you didn't get there maybe an hour or so early or even more, you weren't going to have a decent spot to see, which often meant you had to miss out on eating at one of the restaurants, or you're gonna have to miss some like the late afternoon, early evening shows. And I really would have just loved for a little bit more like later night options than just
Yes.
the pizza line or the sliders line on the in the garden buffet.
We had that same problem. We ended up going to not the souvenir shop, but that little area with all the little stuff in it. And we like bought a bunch of snacks from there because it was like we would eat some snacks before the later shows and then we'd miss like quote unquote dinner time. And then it's 11 o'clock at night. I'm like, well, I'm hungry. So we would just go like buy whatever they had there, which, I'm sure that's part of their plan, but, we
Hmm.
fell for it. But The Doritos were very good.
The Doritos on the ship were top shelf.
Yeah, they were exactly what I needed at like
Yeah.
midnight.
We'll get into the food topic. That's actually one of the next questions. So someone asked how the food was, and there is food available to you a lot of the day, not all of the day. But like Oceans, I've been on other cruises, regular Norwegian cruises, where Oceans is open like until 2 in the morning serving food, like full menu. And I thought on the Rockboat they had that too. And I thought even Rockboaters recently said, like giving advice to Holiday from Real people, yeah, you can go to Oceans after midnight and still get food. But all they had was like nacho chips and cheese and maybe pretzel bites one of the nights and like some kind of meat something or other that I don't eat. But yeah, like Madelyn said, I didn't have time to eat dinner though, because there was Andrew and then Hunter de Blanc and then the Academy is or whatever, and then Shut Up and Dance. Like there's just all these things together. Now it's, late at night and I need another meal, maybe 10, 11, maybe later, but like there should still be meals available.
Or, yeah, I went into it kind of, again, I know enough about cruises, so I was like, all right, I'm technically not there for the food. I just need something that
Hmm.
will sustain me from like an
Same.
energetic, nutritional level. So if there's something I can find, great. I'm not picky. I don't have dietary restrictions. So every time we went, I could find something that did the job. Yeah, I mean, like the chocolate rum balls. I don't know if you guys had those. Chocolate rum balls, smash. Powdered scrambled eggs, pass. That's
Yeah.
that's my rundown.
I liked the made to order omelets in the morning. I always feel like those
Yes.
are pretty good. I'm like again vegetarian. I'm like throw all the vegetables on, don't care what, as
Mhm.
long as they're vegetables. Put them on the egg. Lots of cheese. I'm not vegan. Lots of cheese, and I liked that each morning. I think I ate one every single morning, and that would kind of sustain me till well after lunchtime.
My brother-in-law and his wife, they've done quite a few cruises, and so we were looking to them for a little bit of guidance, but their priorities are maybe a little bit better than ours in the sense of when they cruise, like they want food and they want the beach. And so they always
Yeah.
made it a point each night to go to a restaurant for them. I
Hmm.
think they did every night. And then, when we got to the port, they're like, all right, we're beelining for the beach. And so definitely taking a few pages out of their book for the next cruise we go on, whether it's six man or not, or a Norwegian or not. Again, it wasn't terrible. It was inconvenient for the schedule too.
Yeah.
And maybe matinees are the solution. Who knows?
Yeah, that and I think the schedule. I think the schedule should be more staggered. There were times when three concerts started at the exact same time, and so Mike, I think you brought this up earlier. Whereas you go to the Garden Cafe and everybody's in there at 9:30 at night because three concerts just ended at the exact same time.
I will say the Norwegian staff were super friendly. Everybody in the Garden
Yeah,
Cafe, like, if there was a request, they tried to make it possible. And so I was pleasantly surprised with that level of service.
yeah, I knew I could do this too from prior cruises, and someone had posted about it in the Facebook group. But I could order a veggie burger at any time. Now I'll have to wait a few minutes, but understandably, they don't have a veggie burger ready to go, right? But I did ask. I had a few minutes to ask for one, and I did, and I was like, cool. What are some more unique experiences like this isn't going to happen anywhere else in the world?
The night we were at Hunter de Blanc together, I was standing next to my sister-in-law, Kayla, and I think my brother-in-law and my wife had gone to bed, and I keep staring at this one guy who's down on the level below us. And I was like, I think I know him. And I even like pulled up his LinkedIn picture. I was like, Kayla, is this the same guy? And so I went down there and I asked, I was like, hey, are you Austin by chance? And he was, and it was this a friend of mine from college 10 years ago when I went to school in Orlando.
Wow.
I had no idea he was an Andrew fan. I really hadn't spoken with him at all in probably 9, 10 years. And so it was so fun just getting to catch up. And, yes, there's 2,100 people on the boat, but in the grand scheme of things, that's not that many. And so to have that reconnection was really special. And then we got to end up standing in line together for the first 500 cabin reservation
Hmm.
photo with Andrew, and just getting to catch up about life and twists and turns that have come up. And
Hmm.
it was so surreal being in a dining room chair maze, getting to talk to this person.
What a small world.
I know, it was really wonderful.
Speaking of the 500 people to get the picture with Andrew, what are y'all's thoughts on that experience?
On the Rock Boat, there's 2 mornings of the week at 10 a.m. that you go and you get in line and you can meet any of the artists. They each have their own table
Oh,
and you can go to each one and you have a chance to talk to them and they'll, a lot of people are getting signed, sign my poster, sign my CD, my vinyl. So that it was a completely different dynamic. But I think it changes things when there's the one guy on the ship that everybody wants to talk to, right? So like that would, if they did a meet and greet on this, I think so many people would line up for Andrew. Now, some of us want to meet other artists too, like Augustana and Jukebox the Ghost and Mr. Wives, Rustin Kelly even. So I think it would change the dynamic a little bit. I still think they could do it. Just so anybody who wasn't on the boat knows, first 500 cabins get a picture with Andrew, and they made it very clear you're going to move in, snap a picture, you're going to get out of there as quickly as possible because we need to get through 500 pictures. So I knew what to expect going in based upon that. In fact, you couldn't bring anything in because a lot of people would want something signed. You wouldn't have that opportunity. But Madelyn, what are your thoughts?
Obviously, this poor man could not stand there for more than the amount of time he already did, just smiling and then not smiling, smiling, not smiling. So I
Yeah,
think there was no
500
other option
times.
in that. Yeah, exactly. There was no other real option in that moment. But as someone who did not, I didn't get picked in the lottery to do any of the like wine nights. I didn't get to go to the Dear Jack thing. I didn't really have a lot of time and or energy to do the late night stuff. That picture moment was my only interaction with Andrew. And I kind of only, and because of the nature of the in and out, I only had half a second to be like, why? I got this tattoo. And I couldn't even give any like context. And it seemed like he almost wished he could interact with his
Mm-hmm.
fans more in those moments. And
Yes.
I just would have loved to have seen, obviously not all in one day, because like we said, that is a lot for all parties involved. But I almost wish they had broken it into chunks throughout the whole trip, and maybe each day there was an hour or whatever where certain groups of those 500 people could go in and have a little more time to interact with Andrew instead of just kind of like it's great to have the picture. I would book early again, regardless,
Mm-hmm.
just telling myself I did like pass Andrew a letter I had written him because I knew going into it there was going to be
Six man. Listen
they're
here,
coming
six.
for me. They're coming for me. But it was like there was like a split second, and I saw ahead of time when they started releasing the details about the picture, and I was like, I will not get to talk to this man. I was like, I have a lot of thoughts in my head right now, and I like wrote him this letter, and I like pulled it up, put it in a little bag, and I get up there and I say, oh my God, tattoo that picture, and then I'm like, I have this letter. Who should I give it to? He's like, that girl, and there was a girl who like threw in a box with all his other stuff that people
Yeah,
presumably snuck in the
sure.
same way I did. Now I feel like that meme of that like guy sitting on the bench being like, me wondering if Andrew got my letter because I was like I have no other option to like speak to this man. So like
Yeah.
here's my Hail Mary. And yeah, I just wish, if that is a quote unquote incentive they want to offer again, I don't know. It wouldn't make me
Yeah.
book any faster than I did because it just like I said, it didn't really feel genuine.
You make a great point about Andrew, and everyone who's ever been and ever will be an Andrew fan will know this. He loves talking to his fans. He
Mhm.
loves talking to people. He feeds off of the energy of these people who love music, both when he's on stage but off of stage as well. Again, I don't know a more realistic way to do it. I think you have
Yeah.
a
It's
good
like given the
idea.
limitations,
Yeah,
Mhm.
it is what it is.
I did something maybe naughty too then because I wanted to make sure that Andrew got one of my updated podcast stickers. So I didn't hand it to him, but I know who his manager is. Like he was standing like behind the thing. You had to kind of look for him, and I like ran over to him right after they snapped the picture, and I was like, "Hey, can you make sure Andrew gets this? This is my new podcast sticker." And their job was to like keep the line moving. And so someone like me, like going to hand somebody a sticker, was like, "Wait, what's this guy doing here?"
And I wonder the stories that team could tell from other cruises they do, whether it's the Hallmark cruise or I bet they feel such a like a sense of protection of not just time, but but
Yeah.
there's probably some personalities they've run into before.
I heard from a friend that was when my friend was leaving the ship. She told me that there was two 6-man people talking, and one of them was like, "Oh my gosh, that was actually really fun," and it made us
Aw.
feel. And I was like, "Aw, like they saw that." And so, not to say that other ships aren't, but just like I think it should be acknowledged and known that when we're intense, Mike, you said earlier, but like I think in general, Andrew fans are good people and nice to each other and like kind and respectful. And I
Yeah.
don't know if that's everywhere. It's definitely not in the outside world.
Mm-mm.
I guess my take thing I've been noodling on throughout this conversation in some ways is I think I'd really be fine if the cruise was elongated by a day or two, like I'd be willing to pay more for that and
Yep.
have like a no schedule day. There's
A
no
break.
a break, no shows, and it's a chance to really like live into, go into the dining options, to give the artist a break, whether it's a
Hmm.
day at port or not.
Yeah.
I think I'd be really
Yeah.
open to that.
Yeah,
Hmm.
that's a good idea. Like just one day with just like activities that you're not going to feel like if you miss, you're going to be wasting some part of your experience or whatever. And
Yeah.
maybe they've done like the Andrew and Friends set just like one day, and then everything else was kind of like available activities and free-for-alls and kind of just hanging out. Like I think that would have been
Hmm.
cool. And then like, yeah, add the day as normal. Because
Yeah.
yeah, I do. I feel like I could have used another day because it took us a while to get into a groove, and then we were in the groove. We're like, wow, we gotta leave.
It went by very fast. I knew it would.
Hmm.
But yeah, an extra day would be nice. But even with the same amount of artists and just more spread out, I think would be good, more
Exactly.
staggered. Madeline, you mentioned wine night or VIP night. I did have the opportunity to go to one of those. We got to go to wine night, and Andrew was going around to each of the tables, kind of like at a wedding when like you get married, you have to go to each of the tables and say hi, how are you, But we know with Andrew is very genuine, and he didn't. Honestly, he's a talker. He didn't get to every table, and I felt really badly for the people who he didn't see. But our table was like second from the place he came out. We just happened to sit there, and so he did sit down and talk to us. And there were six of us at the table, so of course everybody wanted to say something. So I'm sorry to other people at wine night that didn't get a chance to talk to Andrew. I feel a little guilty. It was pretty quick interaction, like minutes, right? But we drank wine. We met other fans like that we hadn't met before there at wine night, and it was special because they talked about the Dear Jack Foundation. It was very emotional, very special, and we also like wine, so everything
Win-win.
everything worked out for everyone there, at least from my wife's and my perspective. That was special. It was also really cool. So shout out to the Dear Jack Foundation and the fundraising community. They originally did a lottery, as we know, and we didn't get picked. And that was okay. Like, not everybody gets picked. But then at the end, toward the end of the fundraising, they did say, okay, we're going to take the top 15 fundraisers and offer them a spot at one of these events. And my wife was, I think, 17. So she was very close. And so she actually got picked because one or two people either weren't on the ship or like gave up their spot, basically, which was very cool, so that other fans could get it. It was cool to be able to sit with some of our friends, because some of our friends did get picked in the lottery. I will say, with all that said, it'll be a different atmosphere maybe to do this in February on the next cruise, because it won't have like all that Dear Jack fundraising season type stuff. I'm sure they'll still be the aspect, but it won't be in the season for all those events. So it'll maybe change some things. So it'll be interesting to see like what other things they come up with on the next one.
I wasn't sure how I felt about the lottery thing because I was like, well, you win some, you lose some. But I do really like to know that they did open up spots to people who were higher up in fundraising. I think that's really important and a really good move because I mean, we're raising money for this really great cause to support Andrew and, his mission. And I do feel like it's important that the people who are doing a lot of the heavy lifting in that our area be, I guess rewarded, for lack of a better term, get some of the perks instead of just being mixed up in the lottery with the rest of us.
It was cool because my wife was new to fundraising this year, and
Mhm.
I feel like she put a ton of work into it. And her incentive mainly was, of course, to raise money for a good cause. But it was just nice to see at the end, like, oh, and I get this thing for it, like for just doing something good. So it was pretty neat. I understand not everybody got that, but were there any other unique, special moments that we wanted to talk about before we kind of wrap this up?
One experience that was kind of unique was the sail away on the first day, and it was right around sunset, and it was so hard to like focus my attention because as we're pulling away from the port, downtown Miami is just it's beautiful with the sunset. I think we were also next to the Icon of the Seas,
Yeah, it went by us.
which is the largest passenger cruise ship in the world, if my Googling facts are correct.
Did not know that.
That's like the 8-year-old in me was like, ooh, big boat. Let me look at the big boat. And then hearing Holiday from Real as we're going through, I was very distracted, but it was such a gorgeous and like a sight that's like almost like seared in my memory from the cruise.
It was funny because when the other cruise was going by, a lot of them were looking out at ours, so they're sailing away, and they're looking at what we're doing, and some of them are probably don't know what concert cruises are, music festival cruises are. So like, there's a rock band playing on that on that boat over there. It seemed like everybody on that boat was watching us at that moment.
Or they're like, why is nobody waving back to us, right?
Yeah, because we're not looking. Yeah.
Yeah, that Jack's Mannequin sail away set was like that was like a religious moment for me. Like it will live forever in my memory. I will be on my deathbed many years from now, hopefully, and I'll just sort of like, I remember that sail away set, and I'm going down with it. I like the sunset and the everything moving and just the songs he played and the times he played them. I was so moved the entire time and the absolute impact that Jack's Mannequin, specifically out of all of his projects, has had on my life. It was like leaking tears the entire time
Hmm.
because just from like pure happiness and reflecting on everything like that this man's music in all its iterations, again, especially Jack's Mannequin, has done for me. I don't think anything in my life probably will top that moment, just to be dramatic about
Wow.
it.
I think it was that for all those reasons and also for the free shot we all got.
Yeah. Yeah, they passed out free
Maybe more
shots.
than
I actually
one.
forgot.
That's a,
Yeah, yeah, more than one. Yeah, they brought more. They were bringing more, and like one person in our group like had already drank it, and they're like, "Well, they're offering more. Okay, I guess it's like another one." I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
I don't think they're counting.
Having not
um,
gotten the unlimited drink package, we definitely made use of more than one.
one in
Yeah,
Rome.
yeah.
I
Um,
think everybody else was doing it.
this is a terrible segue to your question, but I we haven't brought it up. You both seem relatively deeply versed in all things Andrew McMahon. Were you surprised at all that Dr. J or Morgan weren't part of the cruise at all?
Yes, big Morgan Paris fan. I was Ivory Lane was great on stage. What I saw, I didn't see her sets, but I was hopeful for Morgan when they said there was going to be a sail or stowaway, and I felt like she should be there. I felt like she added so much to the a couple those couple wilderness years that she was there. However, I did find out from a friend she's touring with Shawn Mendes right now. I'm like, okay, by all means, tour with Shawn Mendes. Yeah, like that's a huge gig, right? So Morgan's busy. Dr. J, I wasn't as surprised by. I don't think he's been in the picture since he left Jack's Mannequin. I know he does his own music now, but he was an original member, so it would have been cool to have him. John Sullivan was in the band for years. I think he played on Glass Passenger. I don't know if he played on People and Things.
I think it was just Glass Passenger, but
Yeah.
I believe the last time he played with Jax was for the last Jack show in 2012. And I could be wrong about that, but I know he was at least part of it. And
I think you're right. At least for some songs, yeah.
there were at least good terms. And not that I was disappointed one way or the other because, Mikey and Zach having them in the wilderness sets are great. But I didn't know what to expect going into it of who was going to be part of it and who wasn't having had the whole something corporate crew
Yeah.
take part.
Our running joke was waiting for Tommy Lee to come out for one of the Everything in Transit songs. Like they planned like this is it, here he comes, and obviously not going to come out, but that was
Oh
our
my God.
our mystery guest. We were fingers crossed for, I guess.
That would have been wild. Seeing some of those songs for the first time in a long time was super special. And I know they're getting us prepared for like what's coming next. 20 Years in Transit's coming up. There's rumors of a tour or some shows at least. And in addition to, the Red Rocks thing that's coming up next year, just like the SoCo shows this past year, I will travel for these Jack shows. I will go try to get to several. In general, I'll go more general with it. It was really cool to see each of the eras of Andrew McMahon, if you will, or his bands play their own sets and not have it all mixed. I mean, I love that Andrew McMahon on the Wilderness tours and plays songs from every one of his bands. But how cool was that to see all Jack's Mannequin and then see all Wilderness? Like, have we ever seen all Wilderness and only Wilderness in one set?
I think that was one of the surprising things for me. It was like how much I really enjoyed just hearing wilderness songs, and
Yeah.
even then, I think that was November 11th. So we even then got something corporate at the end
I,
of,
I guess we did technically, yeah.
and it's right. It's the project that has the biggest catalog at this point, right? And
It is.
so, I would not be opposed to having a pure wilderness tour at some point after the Jax reunion or whatever that looks like ends up coming to be.
Just throwing this out there, 3 night residencies, one with each band in each city. How cool would that be?
All right. Oh,
Yeah.
with the
Get
flights.
get your flights ready, get your bank accounts ready
Yeah.
hmm
Ugh.
if
That's
that
yeah, that's
happens.
my biggest takeaway from this trip is I need to be ready to spend more than just to get on the boat. to get the full
Yeah.
experience at least.
Yeah.
Maybe not full experience, but just to be a little more comfortable, for lack of a better term. Like even some of the excursions, the Wi-Fi, the drink packages, like did I need all of it? No, I didn't pay for it. I didn't do it. Do I now wish I had? Yeah.
We were on the fence about all of that. Like there was so much we did get to do too.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I think we would definitely taken a note from Mike, your is it your sister-in-law, you said brother and
Yeah.
sister-in-law. Okay, so we definitely get to a beach, if we could next time. We missed that part of it, so we'll have to do that on our next one. Well, you guys kind of ready to wrap up with kind of final thoughts here?
Let's do it.
Mhm.
I think Madeline's already answered this question, but I'm just gonna pose it to both of you. 2026, are you guys gonna go?
First 500 if I can.
That's so I think likely we had such a positive experience. I'm like I'm one of those on the border of like, let me see the rest of the lineup.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that's kind of been the fun on the social media side of everybody talking about who could it be and what would it
Yeah,
look like.
yeah.
And I think that will help us seal the deal if we do 2026.
What are
Okay,
your like choice bands that you want to see in 2026?
good question.
One of Steve and I's first interactions online, I think, was around Steve had seen the Rocket Summer in one of their anniversary tours, and Bryce Avery, who leads that, he's just, or is that, he's one of our favorite artists to see live. And there's been like times with like Andrew was in one of his music videos back in the day,
Hmm.
and since he's so piano centric, I think he'd be perfect for this fandom.
I think a lot of people would agree. And I may have even put them on my survey. They were in the running to put on my 6-man survey. One that I brought up as kind of a maybe an outside choice is a band called Sherwood. I loved Sherwood. They were around like mainly Jack's Mannequin era, kind of in the same world. But those three guys, three, four guys, depending on which album, they're not officially together making music. They're still friends. They all live in different places in the United States now. So they're not active, but if somehow they could come back together, I feel like they'd be so fitting in terms musically at least for that atmosphere. The Rocket Summer was definitely on my list. I was trying to think of artists that weren't too big to have their own boat, right? Like people were throwing out names like Newfound Glory, Yellow Card. I forgot the other one, and I was
Even
like,
Dashboard is getting brought up.
Dashboard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, they could almost have their own boat. Maybe not, maybe, but like they have their own like huge fan bases, right? I'm a fan of all three of those artists I've just named, but like I was thinking of artists that would be good pairings, like
Mhm.
alongside Andrew's acts. I can't remember the other one I actually put on the survey, but Rocket Summer may have been on there. Sherwood.
What about you, Madeline?
See the same kind of like thought process as Steve, where I was like, okay, I want to think of somebody who's similar in style, similar fan bases, but not like too big, but not too obscure. And I think the ones that I landed on, and like again, may or may not be any of those things I just said, was The Fray. Because I feel like that's kind of like that. And he toured with them as Jack's Mannequin. So like they
Hmm.
already like know each other. I said The Fray, and again, kind of like your Sherwood band, like I put down the Script, which are I don't think making music because I think one of their members passed away like fairly recently and fairly young.
Mm.
I thought they would be great. I also put in the survey, there's this new band that P and I have been getting into. They're kind of like Walk the Moon, but like newer, and Walk the Moon isn't really together, even though I know they're going to be on Rock Boat, and I'd love to see them too. But this new
Yeah.
band, they're called Sub Radio, and they just like they put on a great show. Like they would be so fun. I know they'd be one of the more like obscure bands since they're still kind of up and coming, but they would just bring a lot of energy, and I think it would be a really good addition if they need like a smaller band to like fill some of the weird times. I mean, I'd be there, but those are probably are the three that I put down.
Yeah, Sub Radio is a good choice. I've had them recommended to me in recent years, and I did check out all their stuff, and I was
Hmm.
like, yeah, they're pretty good.
Oh yeah, yeah.
What would y'all think the shtick would be next time to have, or not shtick, but the big draw for this one was the first time it's Andrew's three projects all at once. And I was trying to think of, would it be fun to like have like a certain album each night from Wilderness or
Oh,
Jax, or like a B-side set would be so fun.
oh yeah.
And I think
I
this is like the
love
perfect
B-sides.
audience for it. And like I don't know what would the headline be each time.
I think I'd like to see more unique sets. Not that I don't feel like I got enough out of this one because I did, but I think you're right. I think they'd have to maybe change it up a little bit. And I think it would be neat to have a so my kind of one of my fantasies about this next one is like I mentioned a matinee earlier. Why not like an Andrew only piano matinee, like in the
Mm-hmm.
theater. It had to be while other things are going on because you can't get 2,000 people in that theater. It's only 900 max. So that's the problem with having him in there. If it was somehow, or maybe he did two of them and you had a ticket or something, I don't know if they could do that. And he did two different matinees for like an hour on an afternoon on the C day or something. So I thought like just a piano only show would be cool. We didn't mention the songs and stories set. I don't know if either of you went to that. I felt like the second half of that was really, really great. I didn't need the front half where it was just like asking him questions, but when he got behind the piano and started noodling on the piano and talking about his songs, I was like, that's what I want to see. I want to see an entire set of him just like, oh, I love this song, and just start trying to play it. Or, oh, here's the story behind this song, and now I'm going to play it for you.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to see that. A B-side set would be cool. That's a great idea. I don't know. What do you think, Madeline?
Yeah. I don't know. I'm kind of like cooking up both of them together because I feel like this cruise was obviously there were like deep cuts and some of the like B-side stuff already, but I think it was definitely like, he had to play the hits and play all the bands and everything. But I almost wish they could even call it like Holiday from Real side B, and it would be all that. It'd be kind of like the acoustic sets, the solo Andrew, and it would be like they play the one big song and then everything else is just whatever Andrew
Just deep
wants to play.
cuts.
That whether people like it, whether people know it, he's gonna play the deep cuts, and it would, yeah, Holiday from Real, the B sides or side B, something like that.
I think all of us are clamoring all the time for those deep cuts. I mean, we've talked about it on Camp
Hmm.
Wilderness. I know, like, hey, how about a very like small club tour where you just play like deep cuts and it's only going to be, a couple hundred people. I don't know if it's sustainable. Charge two or three times as much for a ticket. That's what I've said. Like, charge 125 dollars a ticket.
Hmm.
Your hardcore fans will show up and we'll pay to hear those songs that we never get to hear.
Yeah,
That would be cool.
I already did it for the cruise. Yeah.
I came back with like a natural high I mentioned earlier, like, and I'm still coming down from it, kind of living off that high, looking at pictures, videos of other people's, of my own. I gotta say, I don't know. Did it change my life? I'm coming back with a slightly different perspective. We were in this like very communal family type of atmosphere that the outside world isn't typically like. And I said this earlier, and I just can't help but quote a Jack's Mannequin song. Is it possible for the world to look this way forever? Is something that came to mind while I was kind of thinking about my reflection on this experience. Could we take some of that feeling back with us and share that with others who either weren't able to go or maybe aren't even Andrew fans and just like, out in the world? And honestly, like to get real cheesy, I've been honestly trying to like be a little kinder. And I think I always do that, but like smile a little bit more and like be a little bit more open to people. Whereas, I have to push myself though, honestly. On the boat, like some of the friends I made and some of the friends I had, they're like, yeah, you are Mr. like extrovert, like talking to everybody, right? And I'm like, I'm not like this at home typically with the people in my neighbors. Maybe I need to be. Maybe I need to be a little bit more like, hey, how you doing? Like sort of thing. Like, here, have this spot. Here, you get pizza first before I do. And so I was just like thinking of ways that I could kind of bring that spirit back with me. And it's maybe cheesy to some people, but like, especially if you weren't on that boat, but like, it was such a good feeling for 4 days to have that with all those people. And we can say all day that we had so much in common and we're like minded people, but like, we're all different. We're all different people that got on that boat, yet somehow we all got along and had a really cool experience together.
Yeah, I think I feel the same way to an extent. Like, do was my life changed forever? Do I just feel like a whole new person? No, no. Did I have so much fun? Yes.
Mhm.
But I think, yeah, like coming out of it, it's like you're a better person than me because you're like, I want to be nice to other people. I came out of it and I was like, that was cathartic, like for me in a way that I didn't realize I need. Like, I knew it was going to be fun. I knew it was going to be, a really once in a lifetime opportunity, but I didn't realize how badly I needed that experience and
Mhm.
all those people and all that music and all those things to kind of come back to myself and be like, yeah, I guess so. I guess I lied. It apparently did change my life, at least in the short term, because
Yeah.
like I didn't realize how just bitter and miserable and pessimistic I'd become until I got on that boat. And I'm like, wow, there is still good in this world. And even if it's
Mhm.
just on that boat, and even if it's just
Yeah.
these 2,000 people, I know it's there. And I
Yeah.
needed that. And I didn't realize it till that moment.
For all the things you have said, I agree. And do I feel like a different person? No. I mean, I got to leave the country for the first time, even
That's
though I don't
cool.
have a passport stamp to show for it. But I think really what I've left with and what I've been processing over the days since are just like I have this wave of gratitude, like yes, in for what we've been talking about, the Andrew's generosity, all the acts of just, for what they brought to the stage, what they showed off the stage, like the gratitude that I had the means to make this happen, the gratitude that, we have the grandmas that were willing to watch our kiddos,
Hmm.
the gratitude for the friends that we got to do this with. And I think I don't know if this is because of the time of the year that we're in, that gratitude seems front and centered, but I've been trying to hold on to that a little bit more and
Hmm.
trying to express it a little bit more. And if that's my takeaway from going on a freaking artist cruise, then so be it.
I really appreciate you guys joining me for this. This was fun. It was I knew it would be. I was really looking forward to this time. And Mike, we met briefly on the boat. It was nice to get to know you a little bit better. And Madeline, we had never met before,
Mhm.
and it was great to meet you as well. So thank you guys for coming on.
Thank you so much. It was so much
Awesome.
fun to talk to you guys. I'm not used to having friends who are Andrew McMahon fans or this deep knowledge base to just kind of like ping pong ideas and thoughts off of. So it's been so nice to like talk to some fellow people who get it.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much. This was fun, and this
Success.
reminded me again of the beauty of talking to people on that boat.
Another hit of Andrew McMahon based dopamine.
That's right. And
Definitely needed that.
yeah, in like the spirit of gratitude, thanks for all you do to bring this community together in different reaches. And it's been such a
Gosh,
blast getting to know a little bit more about folks through this. So thank you for it.
Sure thing.
absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thanks.